Welcome to another episode of Salesforce Trails and Trials, where we help you accelerate your career and turn soft skills into hard money by mining gold from project failures, bringing insights from ecosystem experts and inspiration from others on the trail. Now joining us with over 20 years in the ecosystem, please welcome our host, Jon Cline.
Welcome, Mike. Great to have you. And Erik, he'll be back in 2 weeks as he is off to vacation in Greece. So we look forward to hearing about that when he returns. So how have you been?
Been okay, besides the construction in my office and, fun life stuff.
Yeah.
Staying busy.
I lived in a rental house years ago, and I remember the owner telling me that he was a contractor, and he's like, of all the jobs I've ever done, both in my business as well as all my properties, there's probably less than 10% that didn't deal with water in some way,
It always tries to find a way.
right? Well, thanks for you being resilient and showing up anyway and bringing a smile. Good stuff. So let's see. I wanted to highlight a couple things. First off, for those who are listening, I encourage you, I'll have it in the show notes, but I also have an interview with Gearset on their DevOps Diaries podcast with Jack McCurdy coming out today. And I encourage you to take a listen, as that was a really great conversation around how to motivate and enable DevOps and better collaboration as it relates to getting those great features released and into orgs. And one thing I wanted to highlight is also I had a post come out on LinkedIn just about Agentforce and the what I would say the somewhat slow and stale reception that we've seen over the last 6 months. I certainly have an opinion about it, and you may have read that, but I thought that might be a good starter for a few minutes. The basic premise, and I'll have it in the show notes. You can look it up at my LinkedIn profile as well. But essentially, the premise is I wonder how, with all of the hype that's out there with AI in general about like job losses, and, even Bill Gates and all these people are out there saying that 30% of this and all these jobs will be disappearing, there'll be no developers, the middle admin roles will be gone, all this kind of stuff. Can we blame people that when we want to start talking about AI, that they don't immediately think about like, oh, you want me to train my replacement? Even if it's a digital replacement, and why that wouldn't complicate, our message. And it's interesting because I don't think any of these challenges ever happened with Sales Cloud features, even Einstein features or Service Cloud, or they just didn't have this kind of impact. What are your thoughts?
I mean, well, first, I couldn't agree more that the news is swaying people towards, it's taking everyone's job or AI hallucinates. So it's either setting expectations so high that any seasoned person trying it immediately fails and says, oh, this was just all hype, rather than realizing there's a deeper craft to it. And then, or the other side of like just reinforcing maybe that person's opinion, it just hallucinates and it just causes issues. So now you're just detracting people versus getting them to learn how to integrate with and build upon. I see it every day, right? Like, I mean, as a Cursor ambassador, like helping people try to figure out these tools, like I'm like, oh, you're not just learning Cursor, you're learning prompt engineering, you're learning how to work with agents, you're learning different systems of thinking of like how to orchestrate and build these things out.
Mhm.
Still uses your experience and actually is amplified by it quite a bit. I couldn't agree more that also like just focusing on the metrics detracts from like the opportunity and skill to make impact with your systems of thinking and continuing to compete as other companies that implement these things. Just because your company automates this and maybe can say, oh, I could justify getting rid of a few jobs. What do you think is going to happen with all the competitors when they implement it too? Well, then they're going to need something better. And
Mhm.
who's going to make it better? Well, not just bringing more AIs and on
Yeah,
top of
they're all
AIs,
using the same models, right?
all the same models or the same infrastructure. Like
Hmm.
might still need people to be thinking the next step ahead because it's only as good as what it's trained on.
Hmm.
So like if especially as you get more specialized, that's where like I've talked to some people that use like Financial Force, right? The libraries, which is the more complex architecture for Apex. And like it's more challenging to get it to write that full implementation versus just raw Apex.
Hmm.
And though there is some success, it still shows some of the challenges of like getting that consistency and like and it's going to continue to be that way because so what if someone comes up with a better library? Well, there's not going to be a verbose training on it. right? So you're going to have to think of like, how do I make that work? As far as I'm concerned, there's still a human in a loop factor. It's just there's going to be some immediate impacts that companies are going to make mistakes on, and they're going to find out at scale once they have the competitors doing it. They're going to need people to probably make this thing even better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just a different job.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And when we get to what I'm excited about, I'll share a little example I think that kind of ties in with that. So interesting. On that front, one thing when you think about a trend that we see in the marketplace right now, I've been thinking a lot about organizations that kind of lead with AI first as their kind of mantra or as people first in their mantra. I'm starting to see this bifurcation a little bit in kind of storylines. And certainly my perspective is, I think that we have to be people first and let AI emerge, especially those early use cases with AI. When you think about whether it's Agentforce or Crew AI or using Salesforce data, whatever it might be, those internal employee facing use cases are usually the safest and the ones that really validate value. They highlight the success or, opportunities to improve our data. They really validate whether this is something that's going to enhance my role and really speed up the ability to deliver on the brand promise to the customer. I'm curious, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that there's a lot of good use cases where AI first makes sense, but I think that we're going to see an oversaturation of AI first across the spectrum,
Mm,
and that noise is going to lead towards people trying to find new outlets for like what's real. And I think I forgot who said it in the news recently. Like some executive was just kind of like, when we can't tell what's real anymore on the internet, what's authentic, people are going to go to seek other ways to prove like this is a real person or this is a
yeah,
real
face to
thing.
face. That was the
And
guy from Shark Tank, the former owner of the
oh,
Mavericks.
oh yeah, maybe it was that. Yeah. So and I thought that was a really interesting perspective because I'm already feeling that with some of the stuff with VO3, with the
Mm,
video generation stuff. I'm like, whoa, like what is this, right? And I it's only it's like the statement was made like a year ago. This is the worst it's going to be.
mhm,
And so far, every time it gets better, it's like this is the worst it's going to be. You keep bashing it, you keep hating on it, but it's like it's the worst it's going to be. So you guys think forward, like, so what's the new opportunity,
mhm,
right? And when it just keeps getting better, eventually people start valuing like what's the real relationship
mm,
side of things. And we got to figure out what makes sense.
mhm,
Like I just heard Nvidia did a deal with the Yum Brands, whatever, which is they own Taco Bell and all that. And they said they're going to make every single drive-through AI. Now, if anyone is going to probably do it right, maybe that's something Nvidia could pull off. I think this is going. We're going to find out the human experiment in that.
mm,
Do people actually like talk? Do they mind for a drive-through talking to an AI? Does it actually get the orders more correct than a human
mm,
would? And is it more polite and more consistent no matter how you feel?
mhm.
Do they end up liking it more? Or do they go somewhere else where they can have a human experience? Are they willing to pay more for it? And it's a
Right.
really, we're going to find out. It's good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it's a great example of, I mean, or are they going to try and game it and, try and jailbreak it to get their food for free, right?
maybe, yeah, social
Yeah.
engineering hacks. I mean, we're going to see some funny stuff happen.
Yeah.
And we're all in the middle of this experiment together.
It is,
So
it is true. I mean, you think about it on a wider scale, you look at like Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's says we will never have automatic checkout. We will never have delivery or, kind of online services for us. Like we want people to come in here and say hi. And same with grocery outlet where my son works. Same thing. Like they don't have any automated checkouts. They want people to come back to the store because they like engaging and talking with the people there. And I think what I forget the guy's name, but he highlighted that there's going to be a proliferation of face-to-face events within the next 3 years
I
because that's
believe
how
it.
people will validate what's true, which I think is actually beautiful. Having now come back from 6 Dream It events this year, they've just been such great experiences. And anybody, if you haven't been to a Dream It event that's near you, look it up. There's about 15 of them around the country. There's still about 6 or 7 that are still going to be open this year. I will be at Florida Dreamin' and Southeast Dreamin' and hopefully at Dreamforce. But there's Midwest Dreamin', there's We Dreamin', there's a couple others. They're really great events, and I think that's actually a beautiful trend as it relates to kind of business. really getting back to connecting with people. Because there's so many things that we miss, even on Zoom when we're on video with each other. It's still somewhat muted. It's a somewhat muted experience, you know?
Well, even like a post on LinkedIn, it's like, is that their authentic self, or did they use ChatGPT?
Hmm.
And even if they train their GPT better to be more like them based on other things that you've handwritten, or if you've handwritten and then just revised it, right? Like, it's like, what's the most authentic self? You can't AI face to face.
That's
And,
right.
and if you can, when they come out with that, well, then we're gonna go into a whole nother sci-fi situation,
Huh.
right? Like,
Now
you're
we
gonna
go
put a
back to
chip in
your,
your
what was
brain.
the, didn't you do some virtual stuff with
Yeah,
this?
way back in the day, the virtual Second Life, like I did the
Yeah.
virtual
Yeah. You're
education.
come full
And it's
circle.
funny because I remember, 20 years ago having my little avatar in this virtual world, and I'm like, all right, cool. So is this just going to be my real life now? I'm just going to be able to think stuff and just make it. But anyways, like that's Matrix level.
Yeah.
Um, I haven't seen that happen yet, but
Mhm.
I think for now I'm just kind of like, what's the near scope of this? And I think
Mhm.
there's gonna be some validation and the human first, but it's also gonna come down to cost. Not everyone's gonna be able to afford that, right?
Mhm.
Um, it's gonna be interesting to see how people value their money and what they put it into.
Right. Well, what I'm excited about is I took some of your encouragement, right, all the way back to the snake game on Cursor, right? And I've certainly biased towards open source products that bear my name. And so in Cline, I did two things. One, I delegated a project to one of my business analysts that had no programming experience, none. And I said, hey, go produce a crew AI agent that leverages Salesforce data as well as uses some MCP services for like Serper and stuff for grabbing data from websites and basically put on like a demo jam. So he finished yesterday. He had a 1 minute demo of essentially it's a sales prep tool. I think I shared a little bit either last week or the week before what we were planning to do. And so he put together this simple tool that think about if I have a dead opportunity, I haven't talked to them in 3 months. I don't want to just call up and be like, hey, Joe, how's it going? I want to put company name, Joe's email. It goes to Salesforce, looks at activity history, looks at different preferences. Like Joe's talked about rock climbing before. He's talked about like his favorite Baco tacos that he does on his taco trucks. And then we see his address, where he lives and where the company is. So then it goes out to the web and it says, all right, right? Like he likes rock climbing. He loves Mexican food. He's got this. What's going on near his address? What's going on near the company address? And, there's a basic topic we're trying to talk about as well. And so it brings some of those things in the metaphor or simile of rock climbing as a way to kind of talk about it. And then it just brings up some choices. We're not having it generate emails and send them out. We're not doing any of that. We're just having it come and inform the salesperson within 2 minutes of like, here's some ideas on some things you could talk to Joe about. And now when I call, I can be like, dude, there's a sweet rock climbing event in your neighborhood. I'm going to be there. You want to go? And now we can sit and chat and talk. And he's like, wow, I didn't even know about this event. Thank you so much. And AI helped me to figure that out. And now if I have 50 of those leads that are dead, there's actually some hope, motivation, and inspiration to actually go, dig them up again and try and overcome the time decay that I've let them sit, which
That's
is really
awesome.
cool. And he did it all
And
as a business analyst. So this is an
that,
encouragement for anybody, right? To like leverage Cursor, leverage Cline. You guys can reach out to us if you need help. Obviously, Mike is an evangelist and what is an ambassador? Is that the
ambassador,
term,
yeah, like I
right?
helped them spin that up.
Yes, for Cursor. And so I think that that has a lot of legs of
Which,
being a support.
by the way, I will be trying out Klein deeper this weekend, just so you know.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll share with you on Slack, but when you're using Cline, you got to use a new task every now and then, right? So you got once you use up, so you can actually do a forward slash new task, and it'll automatically recontextualize itself when you do a new task. So
Oh,
basically,
nice.
it chains all of your things together, so you don't have to go through all the MD files again. It'll automatically recontextualize and get you accelerated as you move forward, which is super cool.
Sweet. Yeah, maybe I'll take a course from you on how to
Right.
min max the Klein.
Yeah, I love it. No, I mean it's just great. Uh, So tell me what you're excited about these days.
I'm thinking out loud. I'm like, the Cursor Ambassador program has been going well, and we've got people all over the world hosting events. Some of them that had like, I think the Indian one had like 1,000 people like sign up
Wow.
for it. So like these events are really popping off. I mean, I am getting married in less than a month,
Woohoo!
so definitely excited. Like that's probably why I'm like a little hesitant. Like that's probably in the forefront of my head over everything else. But like I'm just kind of exploring. Like my consulting stuff's been going pretty well, but I'm also like opening my door to being like, hey, if there's a really cool like work opportunity, like let's do it. Let's make something happen. Which we talked about last time, and
Mhm.
it's just trying to figure out like the right fit because of my background, right? Like the full stack, the Salesforce, the
Yep.
AI, right? And trying to find something that marries all three of those things. It's interesting. So like I'm kind of just excited for the unknown and like what's gonna happen,
Well, after
in
the
the
show,
next
I
few
have
months.
actually a role that I want to share with you. It's not called the forward deployed engineer, but it actually is very similar to that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'll share
So,
that with you. It's with one of my partners, and it's a great organization, great culture, and you'd be amazing.
oh, thanks.
Um,
Yeah, we'll see what makes sense.
Well, I'm excited for the wedding. We can't wait to see pictures. So I'll share something that, also had your part in it. You had mentioned before that when you're using these kind of co-pilots as it relates to, trying to develop. I mean, I haven't been a software developer since, I mean, I kind of transitioned from there into more executive roles like back in probably 2010, maybe. But I still have that system of thinking, and I think like, I'm an architect, right? So you got to think like that engineering mindset, and so I was using kind of little checklists here and there, right? So I went through and I said, you know what I want to do? I have this people first method. I'm not going to reveal everything I'm doing here yet, but I have all of this content about, right, turning soft skills into hard money and all of this. And I'm like, how do I make this really useful? Much like Notebook LM, but if I wanted to make that something for my team, we could actually leverage that. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to need like, I got to need a graph, like I got to create a data graph. And that data graph then, kind of will connect to the model and maybe I can create a chat interface with that. So that was my experiment. I've never done any of this, right? I don't even know what Neo4j is. I learned, and I'm still not sure that I actually know how to organize the data inside that thing, like with the skills and the relationships and all that stuff. But dude, I was able to build it in like a day and a half. I actually had to throw the first one away. Like after like 4 hours, I just had to start over because it used Docker and it like just took way too long. And I'm like, what am I doing? Right. So I went back and I had it use Lightning Web Components as my front end UI. I had it use the Lightning Design System as my kind of, the styling and and it was amazing. I'm stoked, right? Like at this point, I have a working system. It has a logging utility. It verifies like it started with like API mocking, in the beginning, but now I have legit JSON back and forth with time and performance. And now I'm just trying to refine like how I actually get better data based on all the documents and course materials and everything that I've thrown in there. But it took me 2 days to do it.
That's pretty cool.
And it was just incredible to think about, if that actually turned into something that had legs and we feel like, hey, customers would love this, handing that over to someone who's a real developer, not like me, it's so neat to be able to sketch. It's basically like it's a three-dimensional, four-dimensional sketch now of what I want to do. And it's so much faster than actually me trying to articulate to somebody. And so this is an encouragement for any executive, any lead, the ability to sketch something out, even if it's a lo-fi or hi-fi prototype, so that you can just show it to somebody and walk them through the experience. It's amazing. And, Agent Force is fine, but Crew AI is very easy and simple. There's other tools as well, but to leverage Salesforce as a data source when there are others, and you want to have an interface in Slack or Teams or on a web chat or even SMS messaging or whatever, I was amazed at how straightforward it was for our BA to be able to knock that out. And so that I think is noteworthy. And I appreciate your help on just thinking through the checklists and to make sure that it kind of dials it in because it definitely helps it stay on track and recall the fact that, all right, I only got the first two done. I need to do the other two as I'm recontextualizing on my kind of task chains, which was
Yeah,
cool.
that's awesome. Yeah, and funny enough, Cursor's actually building that now into Cursor.
Nice.
So it seems like there's a trend of like all the things that I've been doing to like build apps, like they're just like, yeah, we'll just put that in the product. I'm like, makes sense because
Yeah,
that's kind of
that's
how
your
I'm
job,
using it.
right?
And especially now that they've made changes, so like they want to train on the data of like things that I'm doing too.
Hmm.
So you know there's like that uncapped plan that they have, and like so when I'm using that, they prefer it to be like public that they can train on. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'll just kind of leave it there and just say like it's a different path, right? Like because you're using it for a different purpose than when
Mhm.
it's public. But I still don't mind because it's like I get to play, and that's the
Mhm.
biggest thing for me is my sandbox.
Yeah,
So
that's good. Well, one noteworthy element that came out this week was, Salesforce has always maintained this aspect that like we own the software, but you own your data. And so Slack came out with revised terms that essentially prohibited you using your data in Slack for any AI training of any kind, even if you have your own LLM or you're looking to export your data in significant ways from Slack, which was a slight departure from the ongoing trend of what Salesforce has done historically. I'm not sure if you looked into that at all.
no, the only things I've been looking into is more so like whoever owns all the business chat is gonna win in the agent race.
Hmm. That's probably,
So
there's certainly trends like that that are probably part of the the motivation here, right? Like Salesforce doesn't want competitive products to be training on their data. So it's
so
interesting. Yeah, they did it on Slack, and I'm curious whether they're going to bring that to Core, right?
yeah,
Be very interesting.
yeah, it'll be interesting. And just to add another thing about Cursor, they made an integration with Slack so that their background agent and all that you can just talk to it right through Slack now. And I was like, that's pretty
Mhm.
cool.
That is cool. Yeah, Crew AI has a standard integration with Slack as well, which just shows the ubiquity of Slack as an interface that people use,
That's
right? I mean,
that's
I use
that's what I
it
was trying to
a lot.
reinforce. Yeah.
Yes, that's
Like the
great.
fact that these, like, I think what I was, rather than just saying, oh, there's another cursor feature, it's more so just the fact that, like, here's another company that's really well known in the space
Hmm.
that is choosing to directly integrate with that platform. So I think it
Yes.
holds a lot of weight of how strong that's being used in the business
Hmm.
space.
Yeah. Yeah, I've started my Slack certification process, right? So created
Oh,
my first Slack app because I just felt like there's so much that I feel like I could do with that app that I just don't recognize yet. And by digging into the weeds and seeing all of the capabilities, I probably would come up with a lot more ideas on how to make use of it.
I
And
probably
so,
should finish my POC that I did like 6 or 7 months ago with that FAQ app thing I was telling you.
hmm.
Because I was like, I could literally make it so that a manager having a chat in Slack can get FAQ data, right?
Hmm.
Trained, and then have an agent in Slack talk to you,
Hmm.
talk to all the people messaging them as like a first gate.
Yeah, it's who does that really well is and this is public because he shared it at Dreaming events, but Arcus, which is an SI in the Salesforce space, they have a great number of essentially help agents that are the like humans are in the channel, but the agent will intercept whenever it
In
can
Slack?
in Slack.
Oh,
Yes.
that's awesome.
It's really well done. I mean, even things like he'll take the last three Salesforce release notes and drop it in and always have the last three in there because inevitably we just want to make sure we're using the latest features and not everybody's going to memorize 300 pages of release notes like every
Yeah.
3.5 months, right?
And you see what just happened here was the classic, I have an idea, and then 10 people did it already.
Well, it can always be done in unique ways, right? And
100%,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
But I think it's a very good use, and it just adds to the collaboration because back to that people first dimension, that's a great one. If you think about, there's all this history in the Slack channel. There is all this potential other data that could be leveraged to answer this question, whether it's HR, payroll, Salesforce releases, well architected documents, all kinds of stuff. Having that person or that digital agent who knows all of this and has this great database that's so much faster to recall than the humans who may not be available, be able to contribute inside the Slack channel, not only answers my question, but now everybody else who's a participant in that channel also gets to benefit from the answer to my question. So it just continues to fuel the benefit of having a collaborative tool like Slack. I suppose Teams would be a similar uh, item as well.
Well, one thing about my app was that it would generate the FAQs from conversations you were having, stripping out PPI information, stuff like that, or
Mm-hmm.
PI or whatever. And like then you would have a dashboard in Salesforce, like LWC component that you could approve or deny or edit. And then you just kind of like automate that process.
Mm.
So then it learns and trains like, oh, this is a temporary knowledge. This is a long-term knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's pretty
then
cool.
now it's able to answer a lot more repetitive questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how this app that you just mentioned works exactly, but mine was like training and learning and stuff
Yeah, I
like
don't know
that.
that it's that sophisticated. So there's an example of how to enhance it, you
All
know?
right. Well, I'm gonna get acquired by them. My POC.
That's good stuff. Yeah, if anybody listening is going to Southeast Dreamin' and Florida Dreamin', I would love to connect. I was able to meet with some listeners at Texas Dreamin', which was great. And it was a surprise. I didn't know anybody would be there, which was super fun. So good. Well, I think that probably wraps up our show for today.
Sounds good. Been a good one, John.
Awesome. Well, we'd love to hear from you. You can feel free to leave a comment. If you're on your Spotify app while you're listening to this, go ahead and swipe up and you can leave us a comment. We'd love for you to share this with other people who would find this valuable. And we'll talk next week. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Salesforce Trails and Trials. If you found this episode valuable, we would love your help reaching others. Please subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, and share this with another who would benefit.